All right, folks, let me start with you, Brandon. I know that your concentration is on the weekly series programs in NASCAR now, but your family has operated Pocono since it was built, and you've got your short track experience at places like South Boston. So you kind of have a unique perspective. And I'm
Mhm.
wondering, what are the different challenges that you think each of the tracks, whether they're a super speedway or a short track, face? And are there similarities?
Yeah, I mean, I think with the cup tracks and the home tracks, there's definitely similarities because it's racing at the end of the day, right? But there's definitely a lot of dissimilar things that it's just in the size and scale and scope. But there are many things such as community, right? And working within the communities and drawing the fans in and the businesses that each of those tracks, whether it's the big cup track or the local home track, that are really kind of embracing and working with the local communities and those that are there. Whether it's dealing with the weekly series drivers and teams, or whether you're dealing with the Cup Series teams. At the end of the day, they're drivers, their teams, their crews, and there's a lot of similarities there. So it's just a scaling of operation at the end of the day when it's all said and done. But it's I will definitely say that on the home track side, it is much more of a personalized feel. That's a lot easier. You're more ingrained in the local community. People know who everybody is. The sponsors that are at those tracks are typically more likely going to be your local businesses that you can go out and support. Versus the national brands, which obviously you can support, but it gives you that shop local feel.
And sometimes, Matt Davis, you get a local flair to a national company such as yours. You guys jumped on board last season, taking up the sponsorship of NASCAR's weekly tracks despite COVID-19. Why?
Well, it ties us to the community. So, as Brandon said, there's these big national chains, but when it comes to these tracks, there's a local flair, local feeling, and all of our stores have employees that are committed to the local community. So, while we are a national chain, we've got over 5,000 locations across North America. Every store is ingrained in the local community, and in the NASCAR Weekly Series and our partnership with NASCAR just continues to build that partnership with the local community. And like I say, the local racetrack is like the Friday night late football in many communities. So Friday and Saturday nights, you see our customers, you see the employees, you see their families. They're at that track, either watching their neighbor or competing, and it's a great way for us to just continue to be part of the community.
Lenny, you've had the opportunity through PRNs at the track and your love of short track racing to see the advantages that these local racetracks and their competitors are enjoying thanks to advanced jumping on board. Can you give me some specifics?
Well, the Advanced My Track program's the easiest one because it's the one now, but just the signage and really taking it from their bricks and mortar to the pavement and grandstands of the grassroots track and bringing people out, even just the handful that were quickly rattled off there, a couple of employees, a couple of family members, that's 5, 6, 8 new tickets that are headed out to the racetrack. And that's important to a grassroots track. And then that flows throughout the week where those drivers and teams can now go in and they've got somebody behind the counter that when they say, hey, I race mini stock at South Boston. Oh, yeah, I saw you. Yeah. What happened to your car? Well, here's why I'm here. Battery, need one. And, I think that connectivity with a store that's got such a national footprint like Advanced Auto Parts that I think it brings more cachet to what they do.
I know, Brandon, it's no longer in your purview, but you have a deep relationship with NASCAR's premier divisions as a former track promoter. Mm-hmm. So from Bill France Sr. to Bill France Jr., who both kind of exercised a not a myopic, but hands-on, family-only approach, with the exception of Mike Elton, to the leadership of Steve Phelps et al. Nowadays. What, if anything, do you think has changed?
I'll first and foremost, it's still got that family business feel. With Jim France and Lisa France Kennedy there, and Ben Kennedy coming up through the ranks now, and his great ideas and leadership, and the ability what they've given Steve Phelps and Steve O'Donnell and the entire leadership team. Jill Gregory before she had left this year. It's been amazing to watch the transition of leadership over the years. Obviously, like you said, I've been in this sport a long time, so I've seen a couple different iterations of it. But I think now with what they're letting Steve and everybody under all the Steves, right, do and how we're looking at business and how we're kind of running things from top to bottom, whether it's the Cup Series or whether it's the weekly series. We have a lot of great foundation to work off of. We have a lot of that family passion that's still there, that resonates throughout the entire company, and honestly, it does feel like a family business, a large one, but a family business nonetheless.
We should point out, Matt, that it's not just NASCAR and the home track series that Advance Auto Parts is involved in. You certainly have your associate sponsorship position with Ryan Blaney, but you also extend all the way out to the NTT IndyCar series. Tell us a little bit about that relationship.
Sure. So with IndyCar, through our partnership with Penske and Team Penske in general, we have a diehard brand part of IndyCar and some of the excitement around Memorial Day weekend and the Indy 500. And then, of course, with the Team Penske, we have a partnership with Ryan Blaney. We actually have what we call 4 primaries. So we just had one in Bristol, and then we'll have some more coming up: Darlington, Atlanta, and Richmond. But great partnership with the Penske team, and then we extend that to our partnership with NASCAR. So we love racing. We're even in World of Outlaws with Tony Stewart. So we're just about everywhere.
I want to get each of your reaction to this, and more as fans than anything else. Just a little while ago, Roger Penske made some news when he suggested that, look, there should be more of these double headers, splitting between Indy cars and NASCAR at the Cup Series level. And then he went one step further. And Roger doesn't do anything by happenstance. So I thought it was, in my personal opinion, a trial balloon when he suggested that not necessarily this year or next, but some due diligence should be done by both sanctioning bodies to, dare I say, hold a doubleheader on a temporary street course. Lenny Baticki, I'm going to start with you. What say you?
Oh, I think that'd be really cool. I'd love to see Jimmy Johnson there, chatting as an IndyCar driver back to his old Hendrick crew and vice versa. I think the cross-pollination is great. We see it at the Chili Bowl when you've got all the drag racers and you've got NASCAR guys and some IndyCar guys there. The flavor is awesome. And I think to have 2 sets of cars and the fans back and forth, I think it'd be really fun.
But Brandon, we're talking about a 3,600-pound race car as compared to the 1,700, 1,800, 1,900 pounds of an Indy car. Would they have to bring in more Jersey barrier on temporary courses?
I'm sure there'll be some of that, and I think the safety guys they salivated getting a chance to figure out how to do things, right? But I mean, with the next gen car, who knows where the possibilities come with what the new car is capable of doing. It's not something we've done, but as you're seeing those. Our cars now run more and more road courses. You saw the Brickyard last year due to COVID switch to the road course and run alongside IndyCar. And it was and it's a great weekend. And trucks and IndyCar have run together for years, whether it's at Texas or St. Louis, Gateway there. There's some great opportunities for all these sports. I mean, we're the 2 top motorsports properties in the United States, one with fenders and one without. And for us to come together, I think that would be an exciting opportunity. And Roger Penske, right? And when Roger speaks, everybody listens. But the man is no fool, and he's never put his mouth or his money somewhere he doesn't think it should be leaning towards.
All right, Matt, take your hat off as part of Advance Auto Parts. Put that hat on that brought you to Bristol to stand in the rain and wait until Monday to watch some good old-fashioned dirt racing. What's your first impression of a double header on a temporary road course?
Well, what I want to do is I want to see the IndyCar guys and gals and the NASCAR people race, on the same course, but race together. I grew up watching IROC. I grew up, IndyCar guys would go down to Daytona and run a Cup race, your Foyt, your Andretti's. So why not get some IndyCar drivers in the Cup car and get some Cup drivers in the Indy cars and see them race each other? It's let's see the stars in both series go head to head. But no, I love the doubleheader. For one, for fans, you get to see it. It's great TV, and then it's just a lot of fun. And I think Jimmy Johnson running IndyCar road courses this year is going to be really exciting. And there's maybe some of those NASCAR fans that aren't aware of it are going to tune in now.
We're going to talk about that in the next segment. Before we go to break, though, I do want to turn out. No one knows just how close you got to have your wish come true, Matt Davis, at the doubleheader at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. You see Jack Harvey and Meyer Shank Racing. Well, AJ Allmendinger is heavily involved with Meyer Shank Racing. And while we were on the air with Brick by Brick, I laid it out to Jack Harvey and to Michael Shank that they needed to field a second car for the Dinger. We were close, but then again, close is only good in horseshoes and hand grenades. We'll continue with our town hall meeting right after you listen to these messages. All right, in 3, 2. Welcome back to our special town hall meeting here on Jackaroot's Wind Tunnel. Quick reminder, you can get a hold of us by just emailing us at jackarootswindtunnel@gmail.com. Lenny, I want to circle back to you. Sure. Because we're starting to put together a full schedule of weekly short track racing now that the northern environs and other places are starting to shake off the snow. What's the outlook post COVID-19?
I think the fans are excited to get back to see their local heroes, and it's close to home. They can be in a safe environment. They know that the Cup Series, the Premier Series, has really showcased how you can go as a fan to certain tracks. You can be socially distant. The competitors can be socially distant and it's safe. And I think the bar that was set so high by NASCAR that was able to run a successful season will trickle down into the NASCAR Advanced Auto Parts Weekly Series. And it'll showcase where, again, we as a community need to come together to keep everybody healthy and still have a blast of a time watching cars go around.
It's about 375 days ago that the sporting world came to an abrupt halt. The race at St. Petersburg for the Indy cars, after it's on, it's off, it's on again, it's off, ended up being postponed. The NBA in the middle of the game, we saw what happened there. And we all were subjected to iRacing, and nothing against iRacing. It was enjoyable, it was entertaining. But then I just personally feel that, again, the cross-pollination that we were talking about in the previous segment, that IndyCar and NASCAR put their shoulder to the wheel, put their heads together. And what I don't think they get enough credit for, Brandon, is the fact that they wrote the manual on how to not circumnavigate the pandemic, but how to exist in the midst of it.
Yeah, it was, I think, early April, late March, that John Bobo, our vice president of racing operations, put together the COVID return to racing team. And we were having, 3-4 meetings a week. We were all doing it remotely, so we're trying to figure all that out. But really kind of dove into it. And him and Tom Bryant kind of led the charge, put together our protocols, which we're still using now. We're tweaking them. We brought in some great infectious disease doctors to kind of help us along and steer us with looking at the right things. There's so much unknown in the beginning. You didn't know what you were drawing up. Ben Kennedy and Steve O'Donnell and Scott Miller up there at the R&D Center, they went through 85 different iterations of the schedule before we finally went running. And even then, we had to make some tweaks along the way, right? Because of just local government protocols. But I think this year, we've started here with Daytona. We're 7-8 weeks in now. We've had an unbelievable season so far. More fans coming in each and every week as we go to different markets. But as we look, to the Advanced Auto Parts Weekly Series, I think the fans are starving for entertainment and they're starving for excitement. And to Lenny's point, it's community. It's getting them, that short drive from their home to their local track, and being able to really kind of build on that. And the tracks that did run towards the end of last year, that we had fans, saw great numbers, and the ones that have been running, early on this year are seeing some great excitement. I think there's a passion there that's been reignited in race fans. And I think with what Auto Parts is doing and really kind of helping us drive that message has been great timing. I mean, maybe coming in the middle of the pandemic, not such great timing for the folks with Advanced Part, but you know what? They made the best of it. We made the best of it with them, and it's given us a chance to kind of look at things and now run full speed this year with some great programs that they've launched, and the Advanced on my track challenge, and putting local tracks on the C pillar of Blaney's cars when they don't have the paint scheme. It's been great. And then for Blaney to go and win, and 2 local tracks that receive $1,200, it speaks volumes to the commitment they've made to the sport and to the fans especially.
Matt, I want to expand upon that, because the challenges that sports in general faced are no different than the challenges that a company like Advanced Auto Parts faced in trying to reinvent or reimagine how to stay in business. Were you guys able to in any way, shape, or form use your involvement in the NASCAR Weekly Series to try and enhance that change and that alteration and approach to each and every one of your individual stores?
No, definitely. With COVID, what came about is, we were all about care and speed. And the number one thing we wanted to do is make sure we took care of the customers, and we did it with speed. So we really instituted our same day delivery, pick up in store. So a customer can download our mobile app, go on, order a part, pull into the store, and just like a pit crew, going in and getting 4 tires, our team goes out there. The customer orders a battery or brakes or wipers or anything, they're right out there, take care of the customer, and the customer is on their way again. So no, definitely. And we really utilized NASCAR to carry on that message. So same day delivery, making sure all the customers are taken care of, and really working together as a team.
IndyCar making some news, doing a test in Texas, but more importantly, also trying to at least gain some data for their engine suppliers as it applies to some sort of an increase in horsepower on a push to pass type basis on the ovals. NASCAR, nothing's off the table. Just this week, flooding the Martinsville Speedway, not flooding it like it was at Bristol, Tennessee on Sunday, but laying down water, and Goodyear testing their rain tires or their wet tires, with the possibility that it could be integrated into future events on half mile or short tracks. Lenny, my question to you, can you imagine in the near future, let's say inclement weather at South Boston Speedway or at Langley or at Merced, and all of a sudden the word goes out it's going to be a wet weather start?
Oh, I think that'd be awesome. I was VP at RCR when we went to Japan and used the Goodyear wet tires to qualify that day and practice at Motegi. And we were all just wide-eyed watching them come down the straightaway, and they were just hauling right there with the wet tires. Goodyear had their engineers spot on. They did it right back then, and that was 96, 97. So I think 20 some odd years further into the future, the oval is not too far out of reach. They'll work on it. I think they could get it at Martinsville. Would be really cool. Maybe have a lifeguard in the flag stand and watch them go around.
Brandon, do you think that there's a high degree of potential for whatever it may be to some of the weekly operations or the regional touring series to enjoy that type of a trickle down?
I guess at the end of the day, yeah. It just depends on what the tire manufacturers can do. But hey, with this new next gen car we have coming out in 22, I think anything, like you said, anything's on the table, and all the outside of the box thinking. And if there's a way that they can figure out how to run that, maybe not in a downpour, but on a damp track,
yeah, Yeah.
I'm sure our engineers are going to try to figure it out, and the guys from Goodyear's would love to do it. But it's rain anywhere at any outdoor facility is a challenge. I know that firsthand pretty well. It's anything that we can do to enhance the fan experience at the national level. Any of that can come down, and vice versa, right? There's a lot of things that our home tracks do with their, with the Advanced Auto Parts Weekly Series events and their other events that we use and we move up the line as well. So it's not a one-way street by any means.
During the first segment of this show, before we convene the town hall, I detailed and introduced to our listeners all 22 tracks, Matt, that are part of the first round voting. What I couldn't believe is that the number of votes that have already been cast at last count. Now, I'm not Georgia, and I don't have any inside information out of the state of Wisconsin, but that the Advance My Track Challenge has already logged more than 30,000 votes. That just speaks volumes to how big short track racing is in America.
Yeah, and they're not stuffing the ballot box either. By rules, they're allowed to. So, the Advanced My Track Challenge, showcasing those 22 tracks around the country. It's, fans can vote now through April 27th, their favorite tracks on advancedmytrack.com. And maybe some states have the same law, but fans are allowed to vote up to 3 times daily. And upon voting, they will be entered to win branded prizes. So, no, definitely the fans are really behind this, and so are the tracks within social media, within in the community. Some of these really good track operators are really, getting the word around. Go on this site and vote for my tracks. And just watching the videos, it's inspiring. These tracks have been through a lot over the past year. And if we can help them, bring some positivity back, get the fans back in the stands. But ultimately, that $50,000 cash prize to the winner is going to be really exciting, and I can't wait to. I wish we could give it up to all of them, but I can't wait till we get that.
I was going to
voting.
say, you might want to be careful about saying that, because your boss, Jason McDonald, may just say, "Hey, pump the brakes just a minute.
Yeah.
We've already committed several $100,000 and across the board." And as we go to break, I should point out, yes, just like Chicago, under Mayor Daley, you can vote early, you can vote often. Just go to advancemytrack.com and vote up to 3 times a day. And you're also automatically, as a fan, entered into a lottery where you're going to win some gifts as well. Up next, want to talk a little bit about, maybe a reconnection between the ultimate, whether it's IndyCar or NASCAR, and the support level, the grassroots level, where each and every driver that finally makes it to the top got started. We'll do that right here on Jackaroot's Wind Tunnel next. Stop that. Okay. In 3, 2. We continue here on our very special race fan town hall meeting with our guests from NASCAR, Brandon Gagowski, from PRN's At the Track, Lenny Baticki, who is, I'm beginning to realize, has held more jobs than I have during his racing career. And then Matt Davis, who is working diligently to have me play a fill-in role in a future Bruce Willis Advanced Auto Parts Die Hard commercial. I could be a great villain. There's a lot of people in my family that accuse me of that already, Matt.
We're doing our best. We'll find a place for you, Jack.
I want to circle back, because even in my track promoter days, it was simply opening up the grandstands, putting out the concessions, and then letting the drivers go at it. The competition was outstanding. Then all of a sudden, television came on board, and the people in the grandstands started to diminish. And as NASCAR at the premier level grew more popular and more popular, there was a big challenge of trying to connect those fans that had never tasted a short track operation to give it a try at their local track. Lenny, you've kind of tracked that. It strikes me that with the advent of the young guns, not only in NASCAR, but you see what Connor Daly and some of the others in IndyCar are doing by competing at the Friday night, Saturday night, and Sunday night racetracks. That connection has been reestablished.
It has, and I think, when Dale passed, we had a real contraction. Everybody was worried about, we got to do this so right, that they kind of peeled away some of the things that were a little rough and people didn't use as much. We lost the contact with just the name of the hometown where the guy was from. And I think that's the most important thing that any announcer can do, is to create that hometown, whether it's the local grassroots announcer at South Boston or Mike Joy or anybody else announcing on national TV, because where you're from, you have instinctive rivals. Already people are going to love you or not love you right away. So now I've got some skin in the game just because that guy's from the other place that I don't like, or he's from the place that I do like. Depending on the guy from New York who has got the Boston stuff and a Gamecock shirt, who knows?
He's not from New York. Greg
Yes,
is from New Jersey. Okay,
But
Greg is from New Jersey.
Where you're from instantly creates that energy for somebody to connect with you. And I think now we're starting to see that more. We're starting to learn where people are from. And as they're celebrated for being from there, that creates a fan base, and then it just magnifies on up. And I think that's what's helping all of us.
I know this, Brandon, may be a what came first, the chicken or the egg question, but you saw a concerted effort by NASCAR, by its competitors, to reconnect and getting the cooperation of the NASCAR weekly home tracks. Who came up with that idea, or was it just something that was over maybe the annual short track promoters conferences in Daytona?
No, it was all me. No, I'm kidding. No, it was a collective group. It was I think we all started to see that there was a disconnect, and when Jim France stepped back in, he's such an advocate for grassroots racing, and I think that kind of spearheaded it, and we all started to kind of look at different things that we can do and how we can do it, and last year, in 2019, when we were doing the NBC grassroots summer program, we started during driver intros and at the track and on TV. We would, to Lenny's point, not just the name of the driver and where they were from, but also where their home track. What was their home track? And we started to incorporate that back in, and we was going to continue to, in 2020, and then we all know what happened there. But it's important to get those ties back, and there's some drivers that may not have spent a lot of time building themselves at the local track level, but they have a home track, right? They have a place they came from, and how do we tie that back? And that's been, I think, a tremendous piece. And as we all have learned, over the last year, things are a little different, and it's given us an opportunity to really kind of dive and think and slow down a bit. I think in this sport, we all go so fast, just like the cars, that it's given us a chance to kind of step back and just really evaluate everything that everybody was doing and how we were doing it and where we were doing it, and really kind of dive into the pieces that we needed to dive into and give that momentum the right position.
Dave, first 30 or 40 years ago, if you won the USAC Triple Crown, you generally had your ticket punched to maybe get a one-off ride in the Indianapolis 500. But there's no longer that correlation. And yet there seems to be a strong tie-in for, if you want to pursue a future in IndyCar, the best place to start is with go-karts.
Yeah, it's interesting to see how things have changed, certainly over the years, but go-karting is the way it has gone lately. I mean, look no further than Joseph Newgarden, who, even though he grew up down in Nashville, Tennessee, he routinely, and his parents, I mean, and shout out to all the parents that put up with all of this and mortgage their homes and do what it takes to fund their children's desires, or maybe even the parents' desires too, let's be honest sometimes. But so Joseph Newgard and the family would routinely make the drive north to just east of Indianapolis at a great facility that Mark Dismore owns. Jackie, I know you know Mark, a place called the Newcastle Motorsports Park.
Yeah, he threw me out of there one night.
You and a lot of other guys. But Joseph, really learned how to drive at a facility like that. And a lot of kids have done that. Connor Daly has done it on the IndyCar side as well. And things have changed certainly over the years. And those days unfortunately, of the AJ Foyts and maybe even more recent vintage, a guy like Tony Stewart, who would hop out of an IndyCar and go to a stock car, and so back and forth. You have no issues with that. John Andretti, the late great John Andretti as well. Maybe those days are gone, hopefully temporarily, because I love the idea of some of these guys. We talked about this earlier. Racing in whatever series, they just want to race, right? It doesn't matter if it's IndyCar, or stock car, let them race. I think those were the great days of racing. You think of some of the greats of AJ and Johnny and so on and so forth. We'd love to see some of that get back to it. It's a little more specialized, certainly, but karting is certainly the way that things trend right now when it comes to motorsport.
There's been a lot of talk, especially with Jimmy Johnson deciding to pursue a second career in the NTT IndyCar series, that there are going to be more NASCAR drivers who have relationships, and that's something the fans don't realize, have very solid relationships with Cup drivers, with Xfinity drivers, and certainly with the Camping World Truck Series, that will see more cross-pollination. I know in my conversations on Wind Tunnel with some of the IndyCar drivers, led by Connor Daly, who already has run some truck events, they'd like to give it a go in something as big as the Daytona 500. Well, do you see any downside to that?
I don't. I think it's awesome. And it helps everyone, right? Brandon, I think you would agree. When you see the IndyCar guys give it a go in NASCAR, that's awesome. Jimmy Johnson, I think, is going to be one of these stories this season. And keep in mind, I mean, this is not an easy task for Jimmy, and he's already talked about it, and he realizes that. I think the first couple of times he was in an IndyCar at Barber Motorsports Park, it was the thrill of a lifetime for him, and in some degree, a dream come true as a guy that grew up in California and following the likes of Rick Mears and so on and so forth. But it's not going to be easy. But if anyone's going to get over that hump and succeed, it's Jimmy Johnson, because he has not only stuck to a plan and is going at this full bore. I mean, heck, he's been testing in these F4 cars, looking around where there's nothing but teenagers, 13, 14-year-olds that he's competing in, and some just to get up to speed, no pun intended. I think it's going to be great. Jimmy's already trimmed a good 2-3 seconds or so from where he started to where he is now. It'd be fascinating to see what he does from Barber Motorsports Park, our opener, April 18th, to the end of the season on the streets of Long Beach.
Guys, I think he might be the most experienced rookie IndyCar's ever seen.
Well, I take that back. Nigel Mansell might be put in the same category, but now I'm dating myself. Okay.
Well, think about this. I mean, rookie classes, they come and go, and they're usually teenagers or guys that are in the 20s or so. But the rookie class in the NTT IndyCar Series this year, we got Jimmy Johnson, 7-time Cup champ. We've got Scott McLaughlin is a 3-time Super V champ, Australian Super V, and then we've got some guy, Romain Grosjean, who's had 180 starts in Formula One. So let's hear it for the over 40 crowd for those two, and Scott McLaughlin's going to be a guy to reckon with too in the series.
No question. And as I said to Scott, age and treachery will win out over youth and enthusiasm at least 97% of the time. Hey, before we close this town hall, I want to give each of you guys an opportunity to weigh in on some thoughts about the future. Are we headed in the right direction? Where would you like to see us go over the course of the next, let's say, 5 years? Lenny Batycki, I'll start with you.
I like the pay-per-views for the grassroots. It gives flexibility within weather and things like that. And if used properly, it can expand their brand just like television did for the Cup Series and IndyCar.
Matt Davis, besides getting me a cameo role in the next Bruce Willis film, what would you like to see accomplished and done in the next 5 years?
Well, for one, I love what NASCAR and IndyCar and all the series are doing to get the youth involved, the go-karts. I was actually prior to the Bristol race this past week, and I stopped by Kingsport, the local weekly series track. They have a go-kart track right next door, and the operator said, the kids come at the go-kart track in the afternoon, and then when the big cars hit the track, instead of going home playing video games, they come over and watch the big cars and dream about that. So I think drawing the youth in, and then everything that's going on with diversity, drawing all the females and the minorities and everybody into the sport. It's a melting pot, and I don't think there's any better melting pot in America than a racetrack. Where else do you see females compete against males on an equal level and many times kick their butt? Some of these weekly tracks and even on the big series. So I love where that's going. And then some of the what we're doing with electricity and the hybrids, I think there's going to be a lot of future development will happen on the racetrack. So that's very exciting for me personally to watch.
And Dave, first, we should point out when Matt was talking about the influx of females, big news that Peretta Motorsports, the first, at least in my knowledge, wholly owned, all female ownership Indy 500 race team, just secured a big time sponsor for the Swiss Miss, Simona Di Silvestro. That's kind of flown under the radar, has it not?
Well, I don't know. I live in Indianapolis. We've heard about it. Certainly nationwide, maybe people are still picking up on it. But that is a great story. It's going to be a female-led team. Certainly not the first in IndyCar. Sarah Fisher before her and others have done it before. Go back decades, really. Female participation in ownership in the series. But it's certainly stemmed from a Penske Entertainment idea that let's bring in Beth Peretta, who's the owner of Peretta Autosport. Right now, it's only for the Indianapolis 500, but the thought is maybe full-time in 2022. And then Roger was adamant about the race for diversity and inclusion, and a young team that's going to start off on the road to Indy. It's called Force Indy. And they've got a young driver named Miles Rowe, who is just a stud. And I think if his development continues, I wouldn't be surprised to see him in the NTT IndyCar series in the next 3 to 4 years. So that's the future right there. And I think, you talk about the hybrid element in 2023, there's a hybrid element coming to the NTT IndyCar series, the 2.4 liter turbocharged V6. It's still going to be loud. It's still going to be authentic. It's still going to be IndyCar, but there will be that hybrid element that's going to give another 100 horsepower boost. And I think, Jack, you know about television. I think it's going to be interesting to see what television looks like in the next 5 years. Live streaming, I think, might be the thing where this is going to end up. And if that's the case, that opens the door to a whole nother range of viewership, not only in the U.S. but globally as well. So, interesting time right now for motorsport.
What about you, Brandon? Where do you think we're headed?
I think we're in a renaissance. I really think that we're at a turning point where you're going to see, drivers that are going to start jumping around to different series. You're going to see diversity and inclusion kind of leading the brigade. You're going to see women rising to the top, and don't be surprised you got a women champion in one of or multiple of the leagues here in the next couple of years. I think there's an excitement about racing that I don't think has been felt nationally in a few years, and maybe even longer than that. And I think there's an excitement that we saw as we all got back ramped up last year, that it kind of, as the first one's back, it gave everybody, oh, well, yeah, they race cars, and it's exciting. And the fact that anybody can do it, right? You can go out there, and the first thing you do when you're a kid is you go, hey, let's race down the street. Let's race into the driveway. Let's race into the hallway. So everybody races, right? like a sign behind me says, we race. Everybody races, and I think you're going to have this renaissance of the sport, and a tremendous growth and an opportunity with drivers, with cars, with crew members, with power packages, and all of that. It's going to be an exciting time to see where racing is in not just 5 years, but in 2-3 years, really.
Yeah, I understand you about We Race. I saw you elbow Batiki and Davis out of the center square tonight. Listen, my sincere thanks to all of you, to Dave First from IndyCar, to Brandon Gagalski from NASCAR, Matt Davis from Advanced Auto Parts, and my good buddy Lenny Batiki, who's part of all of our Wind Tunnel broadcasts with the Advanced Auto Parts weekly series update. To all of you, thank you. And hopefully we get to do this again. We'll close out this very special episode of our special fan town hall right after this.